Hello friends, this is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we discuss manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. Tomahawk and Borodino, what the Kremlin is really talking about. In recent weeks, Russian state television channels and Vladimir Putin himself have been doing everything they can to draw Europe into Moscow's familiar narrative. The West is going to war against Russia. And while the presentation itself, a mixture of pathos, Pushkin quotes, and military threats, may seem like an old-fashioned theatrical performance, the essence of these statements deserves far more attention. Because behind them lies an attempt to build a new architecture for relations with the West, one in which Europe risks ending up on the losing side. Tomahawk as a political marker. The main focus of the program, The Great Game, is the topic of American Tomahawk cruise missiles. Putin admits that this weapon is powerful but not new and does not change the balance of power on the battlefield. But then comes the key. Any transfer of these systems to Ukraine would automatically constitute a qualitatively new stage of escalation, since the Kremlin claims the use of such systems requires the direct participation of the American military. In other words, Moscow is already framing the Tomahawk not so much as a military challenge, as a political threshold beyond which a direct clash between Russia and the United States begins. Crucially, this is not a tactic, but a symbol. Even a hypothetical threat is used as leverage against Europe, which, according to Russian calculations, should be afraid of being drawn into someone else's escalation. Two lines of rhetoric: toughness toward Europe, softness toward the United States. It's noteworthy that, when speaking of the threat from the West, Putin distinguishes between Europe and America. The EU faces the usual accusations of Russophobia, militarization, and pushing Ukraine toward eternal war. But when it comes to the United States, the tone changes. Donald Trump is presented as a comfortable interlocutor who knows how to listen. The Kremlin is clearly leaving the door open for a separate dialogue with Washington, bypassing European capitals. This is no coincidence. Moscow is hoping for a grand bargain with the US, where Europe will be sidelined. In the meantime, the old formula is being used, countering American rationality with European hysteria. Arms control, dialogue, but on new terms. A separate section is devoted to the future of strategic stability. Putin publicly agrees to extend the New START treaty, but immediately sets forth a number of conditions. Take into account new Russian systems, Kinzhal, Avangard, Oreshnik. Discuss tactical nuclear weapons, where Russia claims superiority. Involve not only the US, but also Great Britain and France in the negotiations. Thus, the Kremlin is demanding a new arms control architecture that will legitimize its latest developments and cement its role as an equal center of power. For Europe, this is an important signal. Moscow is only prepared to discuss global security in a format in which the EU remains silent. Tomahawks have filled the media space. Naturally, Putin was also asked what was going on with these Tomahawks, and here's what the president had to say. As for Tomahawks, they are a powerful weapon. True, they are no longer entirely modern, but they are powerful and pose a threat. And of course, this won't change the balance of power on the battlefield at all. There were Atakamsas. So what? Well, yes, they caused some damage. Eventually, Russia's air defense systems adapted. Despite their hypersonic capabilities, they began to shoot them down. Can Tomahawks harm us? They can. We will shoot them down. We will improve our air defense systems. Will this harm our relations, in which there is some light at the end of the tunnel? Of course it will. values as a trench line. A separate section of Putin's speech is devoted to traditional values. Here, the thesis resurfaces. Every civilization has its own pillar, its own cultural and religious norms, and it is these that serve as a guide in the storm of international life. This logic leaves no room for universal rules and means that issues of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law will simply not be addressed in the dialogue with Russia. Where Europe sees common norms, the Kremlin draws impassable lines of identity. For Europe, this is a warning. If we remove the rhetoric about Borodino and the paper tiger, a fairly clear picture emerges. 1. Russia wants to solidify the division of roles. The US is a potential partner for grand agreements, while Europe is a convenient bogeyman to blame for the escalation. 2. The escalation will occur in grey zones. Intelligence, air defense systems on Ukrainian territory, new forms of aid. The Kremlin declares all of this in advance to be direct participation. 3rd, ideological dialogue is impossible. Russia is rejecting universal rules, replacing them with civilizational sovereignty. You've been on the Empire of Lies program. See you soon.